Okay, let's go over our review sheet. Let's start doing a couple of problems, and I'm going to get as much done as I can in the time that I have you. I'll probably have to stop in 15 minutes, and then I'll start back up again. Okay, so first problem says use synthetic division to divide the polynomials. So this is where we're doing our big four, and we're not finding roots here, we're just dividing. So remember, this is your divisor, and because it's in parentheses, you have to set it equal to 0, and then you have to solve for x. I'll get that screen off, so we'll just blow that up. So then if you set x minus 1 is equal to 0, and you solve for x, then you get x is equal to 1. And that's what you put on your side box right here. X is equal to 1. And so this is where we put a top over our box. And then we start with our highest degree. So our highest degree here is 4. So we say 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. Now that setup is just to help you organize your data. Those are not the numbers that you drop down. Now remember, so this is where we go and get our coefficients. So what is the coefficient of your fourth degree? Well, that's 3. So we're going to say under the 4, we put a 3. Then we try to find where's the exponent of x cubed. Well, it's not there. So you have to have a placeholder of 0. What about x squared? There is no x squared, so you have to put a 0. Then find the coefficient of x to the first, which is right here, and that it's an understood 1. And then what is your coefficient? What is your constant? Your constant goes under the 0 and you get a negative 1. So now this is where you drop down. So you don't drop down the 4, you drop down the 3, you drop down the coefficients. So right here, these are all the coefficients of your degrees. Now some of you guys messed this up on your quiz, so make sure you don't do that on your test. So remember, your test is going to replace this quiz grade if you got better. So drop down the 3 and then multiply up. 3 times 1 is 3. And that's a positive 3. So then you're going to add 0 plus 3. You're going to get 3. 3 times 1 is 3. Positive 3. Add down. You get 3. 3 times 3. 3 times 1, is 3. And that's a positive 3. So you get 4. 4 times 1 is 4, and that's a positive 4. So negative 4 plus 4 is 3. So now those are your coefficients to your answer. So the first one's going to be 3x to the, remember, you're depressing this down. So if you start off with the fourth degree of a 4, then you have to go down by 1. So it's going to be x cubed. And the next one, plus 3. And then you go in descending order. 2 plus 3x plus 4. And now this is your remainder. This right here. Remember, this is your remainder. So you put your remainder, so that's a plus 3, over your divisor, which is x minus 1. So then over your divisor of x minus 1. And then that's your answer. That's your division problem. So hopefully that makes sense. So next, let's look at number 2. This is the same thing. You're dividing. So this is your divisor. Set it equal to 0. So x is going to equal a positive 2. So when we do our 4, our 2 goes on the outside of the box. So this time we have a degree, the highest degree is 3. So we start with, this time I'm going to write it as x cubed, because that's what we're starting with, x cubed. Then go x squared, x to the first, and x to the 0. So if you want to do 3, 2, 1, 0, if that makes sense to you, go right ahead. So now we're looking for the coefficient of x cubed. Well, the coefficient is right here on 3, and so we write 3 right below x cubed. Now, what about x squared? I don't see an x squared. So what do I put for x squared? Well, I have to put a 0. That's your placeholder. Next, what is your coefficient of x to the first? Well, remember, there's an understood 1 right there, so you have to realize that that's x to the first. So what is your coefficient? Your coefficient goes right there, and that's a -2. I'll highlight this too. All right, so now the last one that goes at the very end is going to be your constant, the one that does not have the x, because remember, x to the 0 is just 1. It's like it doesn't even exist there. So on this one, we're looking for our constant. So our constant is 4. Okay, so now we're ready for synthetic division. Drop down your 3, multiply up. 3 times 2 goes right here is not 2, it's 6. And that's a positive 6. So 0 plus 6 is 6. 6 times 2, 12. And that's a positive 12. -2 plus 12 is a 10. And 10 plus times 2 is 20. And it's a positive 20. And 4 plus 20 is 24. So remember, we started with an x cubed. So the first one, our first coefficient is going to be 3x. 1 less than x cubed is going to be x squared, plus 6x plus 10. So we go down, so it's 2, 1, and then 0. And then again, here is your remainder. So we put your remainder, so positive 24 over your divisor, which our divisor was 2, or x minus 2. And that's our answer. Okay, so let's go to number 3. So look at the difference this time. Now it's asking us to find the remaining roots. So it gives us one root. So at this point, we do nothing but use this root right here. It says it gives us -2. We do not change the sign to that. It is saying x is equal to -2. Just like up here when we found that x is equal to 1, this is just telling us that x equals 2. So when you go to put this in your box, you put what it actually equals. You say it is -2. Okay, so that's 0. That is a root. So we can even put up here x is equal to -2 because we already know that's one of our roots. Now it wants us to find the rest. So I'm going to put a top here so that I can organize my degrees. So I start off with x cubed, and then go x squared, x to the first, 0. So what's my coefficient of my third degree right here on x to the third is 1. So I put 1 there, and x squared. I don't see an x squared in my given function, so it's 0. And then x to the first would be 6. And then what doesn't have an x? That would be 20. So now, synthetic division again. 1 times -2 is -2. So 0 minus 2 is a -2. -2 times -2 is a positive 4. So 6 plus 4 is 10. 10 times -2 is -20. And then 20 minus 20 is 0. This must be 0, or we've done something wrong. Okay, so on your quiz, some of you made the mistake of keeping going if that wasn't a 0. The only time that you can keep going where you can have a remainder, it's just on these top two where it just says divide. If it is asking you to use synthetic division to solve for roots, this must be a 0. If not, we've done something wrong. We got to go back and check our math. We got to make sure that we have placeholders where we're supposed to have placeholders. We have zeros where we're supposed to have zeros, okay? So now we're trying, the whole goal to this is trying to get this cubic function, which is this right here, because it's x to the third. down to a quadratic. And every time you do synthetic division, you're taking it down 1 degree every time. So on this becomes the coefficient of my new equation. I have x squared, because it was a third. Now I have to take it down 1 degree to the squared, minus 2x plus 10. So now this is a quadratic, and so I can either factor this or I can do quadratic formula. And let's take a look at this. Are we able to factor this? Are there any factors of 10 that are going to add to give us negative 2? I cannot think of anything. 10 and 1 will add to give you 11. 5 and 2 will add to give you 7. So we need to do quadratic formula on this. So our quadratic formula, we have a equals 1, b equals negative 2, and c equals 10. So now we use this to do our quadratic formula. So remember, it's opposite of b. So 2, so positive 2, plus or minus the square root of negative 2 squared. Don't forget to put those in parentheses, because if you square them in your calculator without the parentheses, it's not going to give you the right answer. It's going to give you a negative 4, which we know that negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4, not a negative. So minus 4, there we go, times a, which is 1, times c, which is 10, all over 2 times a, which is 1. So then if we simplify this a bit, we get 2 plus or minus the square root of 4. And you guys, don't miss this on your test, because a lot of you were getting the sign wrong in the middle. So if you take this first, that's going to be a positive 4. Now look at this as a whole. You have a negative 4 times 1 times 10 is going to give you a negative 40. Okay? All over 2. So now we have 2 plus or minus the square root of, well, 4 minus 40 should give us a negative 36 all over 2. Okay, so we're getting close to being done, but we have to remember that if we have a negative, it's got to come out and become an I, right? And then we also know that the square root of 36 is 6. So we can get 2 plus or minus 6i all over 2. Now, remember, you have to simplify completely. So take these and ask yourself, what can we divide all three of those numbers by? Well, 2. Hopefully you said 2. And so 2 divided by 2 is 1. So you must have that 1 there. Plus or minus 6 divided by 2 is 3i all over 2. Well, you don't have to put over 1. It can just be written as 1 plus or minus 3i. So those are 2 zeros right there, slash roots. They're the same thing, 2 roots. So remember, this was a, go back up here, this was a x to the third, which means we need to have 3 roots, or 3 solutions. So one of them was negative 2, and the other one was 1 plus or minus 3i. So now we found all of them. Okay, number 4. Okay, so this time we have a to the 4th. So that means we must have 4 roots, or 4 zeros. So we're given, over here, we're given 2 of them. So we're not sticking anything in the calculator. We're not trying to find any more roots because it's already giving us our roots. So we just need to use those given roots to press this down to a quadratic. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. So my first root, it doesn't matter the order you write them in, but I'm just going to do what was given to us first. So negative 2 was given to us first. So we start off with x to the 4th, x to the 3rd, x squared, x to the first, and then x to the 0. So the coefficient of x to the 4th is 1. The coefficient of x to the 3rd is negative 6. X squared is 6. X to the first is 24. And the constant is negative 40. So now we're going to do synthetic division here. So before we do that, let's go ahead and write our roots that we already know. Negative 2 and 2. We can write those down. So drop down the 1. 1 times negative 2, negative 2. Negative 6 minus 2 is a negative 8. Negative 8 times negative 2 is 16. 16 plus 6 is 22. Times negative 2 is negative 44. So 24 minus 44 is negative 20. Negative 20 times negative 2 is a positive 40. So a negative 40 plus a positive 40 gives me a 0. So if I didn't get a 0 at that very end, I would know that I have done something incorrect. I have not solved this completely correctly. I have either forgotten a number up top here, or I did not do my math right. So now this depresses this down to a cube. So this could be x to the 3rd minus 8x squared plus 22x minus 20. And then I would have to do it again. So those of you who don't like the double 4 that I've taught you, make your own 4 again. This time you're going to use the other given root. So that would be a positive 2. And then you would work this out. X cubed, x squared, x to the first, x to the 0. And then your coefficients would be as follows. Okay? And I'll work that on in a minute. But those of you who like the double 4, you're going to have it look like this. So, and you're going to use, again, the same thing over here. You're going to use the 2 because you've already used the negative 2. Okay, so they have to be different. So we're going to do synthetic division. Drop down your 1. You see how these numbers are the same? You're going to get the same thing if you do that. I'm going to do them simultaneously. So 2 times 1 is 2. Negative 8 plus 2 is negative 6. Negative 6 times 2 is a negative 12. Negative 12. 22 minus 12 is a 10. And then 2 times 10 is 20. So then you get negative 20 plus a positive 20, you get 0. So yay, if we didn't get that, we've done something wrong. So now it's been a cubic, now it's going to be a quadratic. So you get x squared minus 6x plus 10. Now you can ask yourself, can this be factored? And it doesn't look like it. I don't know of any factors of 10 that are going to add to give you a negative 6. So this is where you use your quadratic formula again. So a is equal to 1, b is equal to, what do we get for b? Negative 6, and c is equal to 10. So then we get opposite of b would be 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 6 squared minus 4 times a times 10 all over 2 times a. So here goes the math. Square root of 4 is equal to 2. Don't forget to simplify. All right, so we have found our other two roots. So we can add this over here, and it is -2, 2, and 3 plus or minus I. And there we go. All right, I'm going to stop for now and pick up later.